I know not everybody was here, but I let you guys start off with passing today, so I'm not going to spend too much time and backtrack the story, right? So the cervical crank was this, right? Basically, I'll go really quick with it. I was like this, right? And I dumped him out, and now he's sitting like this. Come up your turtle for a second. You understand this? I was like this, right? I got head and arm, and I wanted to either figure out if I was going to spin to the back quadrant over here, or I was going to snap him out and see if I can go into anaconda, or he was trying to stand up on me, so I had to keep snapping him. Well, one of the three was happening, right? And I'm trying to figure out what he's going to do with this arm. Is he going to pull it back? You know, is he going to yank it back? Do I have it so secured long and that he can't get it back? But I'm trying everything I can to put my hands together, right? So I see an opportunity to make a wedge with this back leg so I can attach my hands. So I jump forward, make this wedge point, put my hands together. So I told you guys that, okay, I got a pretty good grip, and I'm trying to dump him over because I want to see if I can grab onto an anaconda with it, right? So I've latched like this. I bring this back leg in. I bring this leg trailing with me, and now I can dump him over. So I jam him forward, and I dump. And now we said, hey, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to be able to grab onto this elbow with this leg, and now change my hand position so that I can finish him. But then we said in the last class, like, hey, sometimes they'll come up, right? Or we said about 2 classes ago, they come up back to turtle this way, so I follow them, but as I'm coming up, I'm switching my hands the other way, and then I was coming underneath in an anaconda. Not going to go through the sequence, but I hope you understand what I mean by it. Then we said that, damn, sometimes they don't go that way, they jam back this way. And then they're exactly like this. And now I'm holding on to the back of this tricep with my head, with this hand, and what I'm trying to do is see if I could take this hand and loop it inside. If I can loop it inside, then this is how we left off. I scissor my legs and I go to side control and I drop this grip to his chin, and now I have a vicious cervical crank. So as I lace this hand through, as I'm shooting this to his hip, I'm already scissoring coming up, and now I have the cervical crank to finish. That's how we left off, okay? But now we're going to start in side control. Can I have you back, Eve? Right? But you're not going to start in that move, right? Because I've landed in this position. I'm like this at this point. So I don't know if he's going to now fight to come up this way, or can I put him on his back? Because who the hell wants to get their neck cranked underneath like that and then crushed up? Either the disc going to pop, you can't breathe. So now to relieve that pressure, he's got to fight to come this way, right? He's got to marry up his body to match the angle of his neckline, right? So now I'm going to turn around and come the other way on him. So, right, beautiful, BJJ, they asked me this question about, I don't know, Bruce Lee maybe came up with that thing with still like water or flow like water, whatever it is. Like, my view on BJJ is that when it's done beautifully, it's just a flow off of his insane strength and power and all this stuff. And if you can float it and you don't, like, you're cruising at 60% and he's powerful and explosive, like, every man has a gas tank. I find, like, sometimes people, you know, guys have never fought before, or they've, you know, done a little bit of martial arts, they always think they're like, if they got into a tussle, like, yeah, I've got to fight for it. Yeah, you don't understand. When the highest levels in the sport literally get exhausted and become chickens, that, like, I got to say it how it is. Like, when mentally they break and they're on a mat and they're getting pounded. And I've been there and I'm begging my fighter, like, man, you got to fight to get up. And they'll turn to me and go, don't worry, coach, I know what I'm doing. And meanwhile, they go, bah, 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 to the guy's face. And I'm like, dude, fight to get up. Don't know, coach. Don't worry, I got it. Like, no, you're exhausted and you're mentally broke and you lost the will to fight and you're just trying to survive. So if that were to occur, where I go backwards in what I was saying now is that, like, I don't want to have to, like, power for power, because I'm going to say that I don't have the same gas tank as you do if we go power for power. But if I'm going 60% and you're this explosive engine that keeps going, blah, blah, you're going to gas, and now you're going to break mentally. And I've seen so many of the people that you think are high-level blacks, and then, man, they get exhausted, and all of their technique and everything goes out the window. So we want to be able to cruise at about 60, 70% and never redline. So when I came up with him at this point, I was sitting here like this, right? And I came up, and I'm like this. And I'm trying to get him down, but he's fighting to come up on me. So my first reaction is, I have a few. I want to close that gap with my kneecap. So I want to be able to touch that, okay? Number two is, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. He may fight to bring his back to the mat, but now he's 45. So I'm pretty good, right? If we talk about this in a bigger context, I can always re-wrap the head on this back side because you don't have an extra arm back there. So no matter what, even if you came to turtle too quick, I could reestablish the same position I started with in the very first sequence, no matter what. But you came up to a 45 and I'm here like this. So my first reaction is I touch that, right? Because I want to slow down the turn, or I want to have some wedge point that I can potentially, and if this was real fighting, that'd be really critical because I want to knee him to the skull, rip his head apart with elbows on the backside. Like, that's real fighting. That's not, UFC can't do that. Real fighting, you do what you got to do, right? So I want to be able to close that gap, that if he's so powerful, I don't want any lines in there, okay? Also, if he knows BJJ, like, he's going to shrimp away and try to get this kneecap inside here. So make sure you're touching there. Number three with this hand now. He came up to 45, right? So let's take this hand instead, because we said we could always return to this grip. So let's take this hand instead and make a wedge point, right? So he has hard time pulling back here now because I made a wedge at this hip, but I also took this hand and almost drove my thumb grip underneath his backside. So when he pulls back, it's hard for him, okay? I also could potentially grab onto shorts and yank them up. So now I control the hip on the backside, control on the inside. Now this hand placement is pretty critical, okay? Because right at this point right now, all I'm gonna do is windshield wiper this leg. So if this leg was like this, all I'm gonna do is this. That's all I'm gonna do, right? This leg does not move, okay? Other than it pivots. This hand now, okay? I don't ever want this hand to return underneath my neckline, get to my throat and push me away, because he can do it with minimal strength if he can jam into my windpipe. And I don't care how big and strong you are. If he gets to your windpipe, you're gonna back out because you can't do anything. There's minimal pressure, you back out, okay? So if I told you about this, I told you about this, I told you about this, I told you about that, I told you three things that you should be paying attention to. So now you're like this at this point. So as I come up, I had this jamming position right here. I took my hand, my head position, I told you about this arm pummeling over. I also want to wedge this like this, so tight that I know where this hand is the whole time. I also, if you can, I know you can't feel what he feels, but he will feel like I'm gonna pop his freaking arm before I ever get to the position. And the reason is that when I take this grip, I take an elbow, I take a deep false grip, and as I'm turning, I keep this arm up like this. As I'm turning, I'm wedging this thing so tight that I'm yanking and ripping it like this as I wedge it this way. So it feels almost like, and if you're massively strong and you do this part, you will pop people's arms. You'll pop the capsule. And like I don't really not a fan of those because, in competition, man, yeah, I know they pop, and I've been there. Like for 8 months, man, you can't shake my hand because my elbow kills me. But in competition, there's no way you're tapping it. When Jacare had his arm broken and totally broken by a Hodger, he literally got up and went, come on. Like, he didn't, like, so you're going to tell me a capsule brace, because your arm keeps moving. So I'm not a bigger fan of them, but you will get some people that will tap. So when you take this position, we were here like this, right? My hands are like this. I made a wedge point. What am I doing with my elbow? I'm bringing it across, because if you got to give me real stuff. Yeah, the reason I'm stopped is because if they're just going to lay this hand like this, it's not real, right? This guy was trying his best to put in my face, and I'm like this, like I'm protecting my neckline. And now when I'm coming up, he's the guy that was trying like this, because if he's going to leave it lazy like this, like I take this thing every time, like why don't I just do this? Like, so that's not real, right? So he's got to be able to like fight with this hand. Otherwise, he's going to get this hand cracked on him. Otherwise, he's going to get laced on a Kimura in 2 seconds. So this hand would be fighting like crazy to get back inside. Otherwise, he's lost position of this hand. He's lost position of the neckline. He had made no attempt to recover on the bottom side, right? So you're sitting here like this. My head position goes right to this ear so I can secure this. As Ethan's trying to recover, my head position never left. Bottom side is connected. This guy turns over, side leg, other side cleared. When I lace my head, I'm not ready to go anywhere. It's no big deal if he lays back down. What I don't want him is leaving to turtle. So if Ethan were to leave to turtle from this point, it's easy for me to drop this hand and take this hand behind his back. So it's not real, right? So I'm sitting here like this. I'm pinching my knees. I never pick my head up. All I'm looking to do is put this hand in front of this hand and this hand have daylight on the back side. Turn it this way because most people are here. Right? So I'm sitting here like this. As I lace him through, I've never left the position. Only thing I did was retract this hand to grab this wrist. Now these two marry up, okay? Be specific, and especially, not for the white belt, the blue belt, especially if you're a high level player. Like if you're a high level player, there's nothing better than knowing he knows what I'm gonna do and he can't stop it. And the only reason he can't stop it is you're so perfect on your details that you're like, and like, you know, earlier I picked him up like this, right? And he decided, I don't have to do any of this. Like, go down for me. I'm like this. And now you may say, so that you understand like how fighting goes down, put these guys down. And let's say, right? And I say about the ear and the pivot and stuff. And some people go like, oh, I don't feel like doing that. Man, you will never be understanding of fighting. I'm like this at this point. I'm going, you know what? I'm going to kick your ass. I go to his neck. I push his neck away. And now I go on his arm like this. And now I'm going to sit and pivot. I'm going, whoompa, whoompa. And now I'm not going to go this arm. And my pivots are the same. Now I'm at a 45 coming back with these knees. Now when the knee drops and his head is right here, wet, this is like real fighting now, right? But then if you didn't do all of the things I told you before, you know what this guy do? Push you away, get up and kick your freaking ass. And now you, all the things, all the small details and all that stuff, you're like, this is how a high level guy will do it in here. And you go like, oh God, can you please get back your black belt? Like, please, like, if you're not going to practice detail, like, give back the belts. Like, don't even worry about them. Okay, guys? Let's partner up, be very, very detailed. Let's do it. One, two, three. Everything's exactly the same. If you want to take it, some people are taking it from beginning to end, so it's super realistic. Some people are doing just a move. Some people are combining them. You can combine them. So now, let's say you're like this. You're picking them up, and you're going, I can't get a good bite of this thing sitting so low. Like I remember before I said about Ethan, where this position is sitting so low and you don't feel comfortable. Why don't you just re-grip this neck and then go back again the other way, right? I just shoot him back and now I'm going, okay, I'll finish it the other way, right? So you can reset your neckline very easily and I'll bring him back because you're feeling like, you know what, this freaking guy's like this. And I'm like, gosh, he's got his hands paired so tight down here. And I go, even when I get over, one of the questions prior to starting was Chris had asked me, like, when they pair up their hands, how do I get the Kimura? Like, and I'm going like, God, you're ready. This guy's got his hands already tied up. He's got them in his shorts and he's holding on to his underwears. And I'm going, all right, let me go back to this neck then, right? I didn't force anything. I brought him up to this point, and I'm like, damn, he's got this thing paired. And I'm like, okay, let me get back to this neckline. I just relaced his neck. You want to keep his hands down there. He's not trying to get up. I have my good wedge point over here. I have a safety valve to touch here. I can always, worst case scenario, what's the worst case scenario, which isn't a bad scenario, I would have loved to have taken your back in competition because it's 4 points, or potentially you're just really a big dude, man, and my chances are better behind you. So what's the worst case scenario? Ethan was so aggressive and just trying to stand up. I was mixing this up, I was trying to hold on to his pants. And worst case scenario, like Ethan comes up too quick to turtle, I just go, okay, back again. And I'm back on that backside, right? So in 2 seconds, I'll get back to the backside because my transition points are just spin on kneecaps. You're the guy fighting to come up, and I didn't have to go there. I could have bailed out on this quadrant if I needed to, right? So you can see it's like, as long as you can play the game off of his patterns and his explosive strength, the game starts to be artistic in the movements, okay? So let's just add that. If you want to bring them back, you want to start from the beginning, we had a lot of different ones we just paired there. So any one you want. You could also spin it to an arm bar. If you decide you're up like this, why don't you go, I'm back again, taking this leg out, finishing it on the top side. Like, you can take it any way you want, any way you want. You got about 5 minutes, and just visualize it. Next week we'll recapture it, and we'll drill a whole bunch of different ones. You just guys get like, hey man, ain't gonna be any, you keep doing what you're doing. Then the game gets so much fun, because you just like manipulate her movements and wedge points and stuff. Then the game's so much fun for me to watch too. So that's even better for me. So let's go, guys. 5 minutes, and then we get started. Thanks.